All right. Hello. My name is Allison. I am working with Consortech. So we're just outside of Montreal. We are data integrators, workflow automators, GIS consultants, developers, etc. And we are proud to be platinum partners with SAFE. Enough about that. I'm here to talk to you today about a project that we did with the region of York, Ontario. So this is a very large region, just north-ish of Toronto. There's over 1.1 million people, and it's growing very rapidly. There's over 20,000 new residents per year. They have what they would call big city challenges, but also, they're like a big city with rural challenges. So they have a lot of unique challenges, and they've identified a problem. So what is their problem? Well, when they're receiving CAD plans of new developments, the drawings are coming in a wide variety of formats and quality, sometimes PDF, sometimes CAD, sometimes MicroStation, could be anything. Sometimes paper copies. These paper copies have to be digitized. They're unable to use in systems easily. Circulation and storage is a problem. Digital plans need to be standardized. Inconsistent data layers, not geolocated, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a big problem where they have massive amounts of data coming in any which way, and they need to be able to take that data and put it back into the system that they have in a coherent way. So we started this project, which has been called the Digital Upload Project, and it was a collaboration between the region of York, Consortech, and two municipalities, Vaughan and King. So this was supposed to be a pilot project, and those were the municipalities that were chosen. So we all worked together to get this project up and running, and the main idea for this project was that a CAD drawing would come in, and this is like very, very simplified. A CAD drawing would come in, be submitted through an online portal, and then automatically be converted into GIS-friendly data. Just to get an idea of, in this room, how many people have worked with CAD to GIS before? Yeah? Okay, so you have an idea of some of the challenges that this is like very ideal. This is like very, very ideal. So project philosophy for phase one was to create a solution that was straightforward, so basically as simple as possible, as flexible as possible, and something that's scalable, so something that could be evolved over time. So we designed it in a way that was modular, agile, and really allowing for evolution, considering that it is phase one. So the role of collaborating with the region of York is that they were in charge of the project, basically. So it was their overall strategy and vision, project planning, and stakeholder facilitation. We also worked and collaborated with the municipalities. They were there to provide feedback and work together regarding the submission structure and requirements. So how, what is the actual list of things that need to be submitted? How should it be structured? How should it be formatted? What are the technical specifications and concerns and considerations more at a detailed level than what the region of York was focusing on? And we also had a piece of this project which was collaboration with the development communities. So one of the things that we're finding is that we have a lot of municipalities that are like, oh, we need this information, we need this data in such and such a way. And then you have a development community that is creating this data, and sometimes they're not being consulted, sometimes we don't know what their challenges are. So you have two different worlds that are trying to talk to one another, and sometimes it's very challenging. So we did online surveys and telephone interviews with some selected members from the development communities, looking to find a middle ground between all these different professionals, and their feedback helped shape the project direction. So what did we learn? This is a very simplified list of information of what we learned, but overall, the development community was super happy with the idea of going with online submissions. Cautious about submitting CAD data for copyright reasons, for security reasons. Things are supposed to be locked down and secretive. And also adhering to a CAD standard was not a very popular idea, as probably some of you may know. So, however, some of them were willing to play ball and embark on this journey. So a couple other things we learned is that there's a deep developer ecosystem, which is a term that we kind of coined, whereas it's not just like, it's not always the same thing. There's developers, promoters, architects, designers, drafters, and sometimes they're subcontracted and then subcontracted and then subcontracted. So it's hard to make a system that works for everybody. And submissions can vary. They can be all types of different file formats. They can have all kinds of additional documentation, can be in all different standards, et cetera, et cetera. And everyone is looking for a simple solution. So we built basically a portal, an FME portal, not an FME portal, but a portal online, a web portal that allows access to FME workbenches. So the users, the developer community, would be able to access this portal, submit their drawings, and then it would go into the FME machine. We would do layer mapping. So what was interesting about this project is that the layer mapping is dynamic. So we would require that the developers fill out what layer is on what. So they can have their own standard. They can do whatever they want with regards to their standard, as long as they tell us what layers go to what. So we did the layer mapping, data filtering, basic geometry validation to make sure that we weren't getting too much garbage, attribute mining when possible if there are block attributes and whatnot, and reporting on all of the above. So when a submission was received, the municipality and the developers would receive a notification. And when the processing was done, they would also receive a notification from FME server where you would get a little text file that gave you the summary of the processing. And at the end, you would receive a PDF of the CAD file, which is so-so at this point in the phase one. But you would also receive a file geodatabase, which contains all of the CAD data that had been identified in the layer mapping spreadsheet in your own standard. So it could come from any standard, goes through the FME dynamic workspace, which will output to file geodatabase. As well, you would have an Excel file with reports and text file reports as well. So here's the obligatory workbench screenshot of the data processing. So you have the filtering and the validation, reporting, attribute mining, and in the end, the schema. So one of the challenges with file geodatabases, I don't know if many of you have worked with them before in terms of dynamic schemas, but it can be a bit challenging. So for the dynamic schema, we used a custom transformer schema setter to take the schema from the Excel file, but only the parts of the Excel file that were actually used in the CAD drawing, and then output that to a file geodatabase. The layer mapping spreadsheet, this is what was used, this is what is used to map the CAD layers to the GIS layers. And at this point, it's pretty simple. And this is what FME is using to determine what CAD layers should go on what GIS layers. This is an example of a finished file geodatabase. So once it has gone through the system, you can see that, I mean, it's not super, super beautiful, but at the end of the day, you've taken your CAD data, you've changed all the layers, and you have a file geodatabase that's ready to use in your system in the standard that you need it to be in. So they were super happy with this. And for a phase one, you have a solution that is flexible. Because of FME, we can evolve it. We can include new file data types, and we can grow it as much as we want to add any kind of validations that we want, or possibly even corrections at some point, or transforming, maybe even transforming some of the geometries, because as we know, CAD geometry is not always the same as GIS geometry. So that's something that they're looking forward to potentially down the line. So I will play a little demo of the portal, what it looks like right now. I have it here. So this is just a couple minutes. Oh, it's not playing. Just one sec. How do I make this play? I think I need to stop the slideshow. Ah, there we go. Okay. Okay. So the user would go into the web page, sign in, and they'll go to upload their submission. Some instructions specifying how the submission should be structured. And then they'll go in and they'll choose their file. It accepts a zip file, and it can have as many submissions as you want in one zip file. So this is the example. This is the CAD file that we're looking at. Those are the layers that you see on the left that we're going to be transforming. And here's the Excel layer map spreadsheet for that. So we're going to go select the zip file. Add a little description. Upload the file. And then you can go into your submission history, where it tells you where you're at. So this one has been submitted. And if you just do a refresh, it'll tell you, okay, now it's processing. And it gives you the date and time of all of the above. And then once it's been processed, you can access the original data, you can access the resulting data, and you can also access just a summary file of what was processed and what were the results. So if you extract the zip file, you can see the result folder. You have the process summary. So this gives you a list of all the files that were included in your package and how and whether it was processed successfully or not. And then you also have the inside, which is the file geodatabase, the PDF, the Excel reports. And yeah, so here we are opening it up in ArcGIS. And we have our GIS ready data that could be integrated into the corporate GIS system. We store a bunch of attributes according to the CAD data, the original CAD data. So as you can see, we store the layer, the file name. If it's text, we store the text string. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the demo. And I didn't want to actually close PowerPoint, so I will open that up one more time. Get to the very end, where, we talk about the benefits. So because of this, we have a greatly reduced staff effort, meaning that the GIS folk can do other things than transform CAD files into GIS. The data quality is much more consistent, and they're hoping that over time, because the developers can actually access the results of what they have submitted, they'll be able to make those changes and clean it up on their own. They will potentially also be putting in place a go, no-go type of thing, whereas if you have, once we do the validations, if you have a certain number of errors, or if it passes a certain threshold, then the submission will be rejected. So this allows them to basically put the onus back on the development community to submit quality data, and gives them a tool to also be able to measure that for themselves. right now they're still in the phase of figuring out what is that line, like what is the line where we say it's unacceptable or not, and this is where the phased approach comes in. It allows us to integrate the data into the systems much more easily, improving opportunities for data sharing, circulation of the data, and definitely reduces the response time for submissions. So if the developers are submitting their applications, they get processed faster rather than somebody that needs to show up with their paper and then it gets opened up and reviewed and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are definitely increasing that response time. So are there any questions? Yep.
Do you deal with anything from ground to grid calculations? So because most of our GIS starts grid and consultants will be working ground. If they're working over a city block, you could be off by 20 centimeters to 30 centimeters, depending on the elevation differences.
Yeah, they're receiving them they're using NAD 83, Zone 17. So that's one of the things that they're currently still working with the developers to figure out how they're going to go for that. Mm-hmm.
I want to ask about that kind of give and take process between the developers and you. Do you have like an open dialogue with developers? Like if you send them emails, say your data is terrible, can they respond back and say like, no, I did it right, or something like? How do you handle that actual social relationship with the developers as they're submitting garbage and you're cleaning it up?
Well, the social aspect was actually a major part of this project, and we were working with the municipalities to help them understand where the developers are coming from. So they actually chose a few developers to do the pilot project with, so they do have that kind of communication with them. As for that, I guess the main answer I could give is that it really depends on the municipality and the relationship that they have with the developers. One thing that we did notice is that each development company or whatever, the developers, the person that you're going to be communicating with is not always going to be the same. You're not necessarily going to be talking to the CAD person. You could be talking to a secretary. You could be talking to a manager. You could be talking to anybody. So it's kind of hard to actually give you a across-the-board answer for what we've seen for that.
So just a follow-up. So did you see a lot of differences between development companies or even individual users between, this development company they're always getting rejected, and other companies maybe they get rejected sometimes, you just make little tweaks and work with it?
We don't really know yet. This is it's a phase one, so they've chosen certain developers to work with. Some developers have already their own standards, so it's going to be easy. They're going to fill out this spreadsheet one time, and then theoretically it should be nice coming through. And then you have other ones where it's going to be a lot more difficult. But that would definitely be something to follow to see where this goes. Mm-hmm.
Any future plans of doing lifecycle management from the GIS, exporting out to a CAD file, consultants, design on top of that, expire existing for asset management, and then repopulate back to the GIS?
With this particular, we do that with some of our other clients, but for this particular client, I'm not sure. It's not so much the region of York. So this data is going to the municipalities and to the region of York. As for whether they're doing that right now, I don't think so. I think it depends on the municipality, but that's definitely where they're aiming to get to. Mm-hmm.
Maybe I missed it, but did all the municipalities within York sort of agree on a typical CAD standard?
No, I guess that's the interesting bit about this project is that it's dynamic. So because they don't want to impose a CAD standard for the entire region, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, fill out this, do what you want, have your own standard, fill out this spreadsheet, and tell us what your standard is, and then we'll do the dynamic.
And that's where the schema.
Exactly, that's where the layer mapping thing comes in. Yeah.
They can only agree.
Good luck with that. Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with errors? I saw you wrote error in there, but is there any sort of other feedback with error?
it depends on the type of error. They're trying to figure out right now what kind of errors are going to be, like, we won't accept this errors, or errors that they're like, okay, well, we'll fix this internally, and this will evolve over time. But yeah, it's indicated in the Excel spreadsheets and in the file geodatabase too that there's a problem with it, depending on the type of problem. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So there's no bounce back though. So this point in time is just one way.
Right now, it's just one way. However, the developers also receive the results. So the municipalities receive them, the region receives them, and the developers will be able to see them. Mm-hmm.
Do you do anything with 3D, or is it all just for one-story-ish building?
No 3D yet. It's in the future. Mm-hmm.
So have you been able to quantify all the savings? Because a lot, I think, is still in the attribution part, which is still done, right, in terms of like our GI stuff. So is there any sort of merit, predicate as far as how much savings has been done as far as the data capture part of that?
We don't have any stats on that yet, but I can tell you that the municipalities that are participating are, anyway, the GIS folk are very happy to not have to do that manual job of putting it into CAD. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing stats on what's actually going to change.
Okay, my shoes are so squeaky. Any other questions for Allison?
Oh,
Mhm.
wow, biggest pain point in the whole phase 1.
It was very much like a human project, meaning that you had to take all these different folks who are at all different levels of different professions and try and get them to understand each other's challenges. For example, at the beginning of the project, you had GIS people who were like, we want to force CAD people to give us parcel polygons, and that's like not something that's going to happen anytime soon without very large cost impact. So it's basically dealing with finding a middle ground that everybody can be happy with, and getting everybody to play ball together was probably the biggest challenge, but also maybe the most fun challenge as well. Mm-hmm.
Is there kind of a discussion that if people are kind of unwilling to work with this attempt to mitigate difference, that there is kind of a documentation region of like, this group is willing to work with us, this group isn't? Because I know a lot of companies, when it comes down to lots of people trying to get work, that if you're not willing to kind of bring a standard forward that is being requested, the data that you're providing, that you do get cut out of the process potentially. You're inflexible.
Yeah, I don't think they're at that phase yet. They're definitely not at that phase yet. I know that there's a lot of talk about incentives. It's, you know, if you use this process, then you may receive your responses much quicker. So working with incentives, or I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of discussion, but I mean, this is sort of a policy level thing at the region and the municipalities that there's a lot of talk about anyway right now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Allison, for your talk. That was really cool.
Thank you.